Age 34, a family dinner, 9 people at the table, constant noise, and they hadn't said a real word to anyone in 3 hours. Not because they were quiet. Because no one asked. They smiled at the right moments, laughed once, refilled their glass twice, performed presence without being present, no one noticed. That was the part that stayed. Not the silence itself, the fact that it was invisible, that they had disappeared completely inside a full room. If you want to understand exactly why this happens, hit that like button. Welcome to Unfiltered Adulthood, where we explore the quiet shifts that reshape us. Subscribe, and let's get back to the story. It started early, long before that dinner. A household where silence meant danger. Where the quiet before a parent's voice carried more information than the words that followed. They learned to read it, calibrate to it. Survive it. A child's nervous system memorized the texture of silence before it memorized the alphabet. That education never left. Decades later. Different rooms, different people, same nervous system, a pause in a conversation, 2 seconds, maybe 3. And something old activated. Not thought. Not chosen, just triggered. The body moved before the mind could object. They filled the silence. Every time. Instinctively, a joke, a question. A subject change. Anything to collapse the gap before it grew into something that resembled what they remembered. 31 unanswered texts across 4 relationships in a single year. Not counted then, only visible in retrospect. Each one, a silence they couldn't control. Each one. A small reactivation of something that had no business being present anymore. The strategy made sense once. In a room where silence genuinely carried threat, filling it was adaptive. Intelligent. Necessary. That room no longer existed. The strategy remained. They were managing a ghost. The haunting felt completely real. At work. A manager's long pause after a presentation. 3 seconds of neutral thought on their end. 3 seconds of evidence gathering on the other end. By the time the manager spoke, they had already constructed a full narrative. Disappointing. Failing. About to be told something bad. The manager said the presentation was fine. They nodded. The narrative didn't fully dissolve. Just filed itself away for later. 14 similar moments in a single quarter. 14 misreadings of neutral silence. 14 small expenditures of cortisol for a threat that wasn't there. The body kept the score. The mind kept the story. Then came the relationship, 2 years in. A good one. Genuinely good, someone who used silence differently. Comfortably, who could sit in a car for 40 minutes without speaking and mean nothing by it. Just present, just quiet, just fine. They were not fine. Every quiet drive became a diagnostic exercise. What did it mean? What had changed? What had they done? Mental replays of the last conversation, searching for the moment that had caused this. Nothing found. Searched again, still nothing. The other person, completely unaware. Reading a phone, looking out the window. Existing in silence without incident. 17 quiet evenings in 2 months. Each one survived, each one costing something. A low hum of vigilance that never fully switched off. By the end of each night, exhausted in a way that had no visible cause. They couldn't explain it, couldn't say, your silence is activating a decade-old alarm system that was never decommissioned. Couldn't say, when you go quiet, I stop being here and start being 7 years old in a different room entirely. So they said nothing. Which meant they were now producing the very silence they couldn't tolerate. Performing calm, managing the surface. Becoming invisible in a relationship that had no reason to make them invisible. The mask fit well, that was the problem, no one could see it was a mask. One evening, quiet apartment, the other person asleep, they sat with it. The hum, the vigilance, the exhaustion, and for the first time, asked the question they had been avoiding. What if the silence isn't the problem? What if I am? The change didn't look like therapy, didn't look like a breakthrough. It looked like staying in it. One quiet car ride, 40 minutes, the old activation arrived on schedule. The familiar pull to speak, to fill, to collapse the gap, they noticed it, didn't follow it. Stayed in the discomfort without resolving it. Counted the minutes. 3, then 5. Then 10. Nothing happened. That was the data. Not a revelation, just data. The silence did not become what they feared. The relationship did not shift. The other person remained exactly as they were, present, unbothered, real. The alarm had fired, the threat hadn't materialized, the alarm was wrong. Not always wrong. Not wrong in the room it was built for. Wrong here, wrong now, wrong in most rooms it had been applied to for the last 20 years. No dramatic confrontation with the past. No cathartic conversation. Just a quiet recalibration, sitting with the activation and letting it complete its cycle without acting on it. Once, then again. Then again. 11 quiet drives over the following 6 weeks. The activation still came, arrived less loudly each time. Not gone. Recategorized. This is an old signal, this room is safe, these two things can coexist. The silence stopped being a test. Stopped being evidence, became, occasionally, just silence. This is not a story about being healed. The old wiring is still there. Some silences still pull. A certain tone of quiet, specific texture, specific context, still activates something old and fast. Probably always will. But the relationship to it changed. That's the accurate version. They stopped performing calm and started occasionally having it. Small distinction, significant difference. The vigilance that used to run continuously now ran selectively. The nervous system learned, slowly, imperfectly. That not all silence speaks. That neutral is allowed to be neutral. That a pause is sometimes just a pause. The relationship survived. More than survived, the quiet drives became something else. Not comfortable immediately. Not dramatic, just gradually less costly. The 40 minutes that used to drain them became 40 minutes that sometimes restored them. The family dinners are still difficult. That room carries too much history to be neutral quickly. 9 people. Old silence, old signals. They still disappear sometimes. Still perform presence without being fully present. The difference is they know it now, can name it while it's happening. Can sometimes choose differently. That's not transformation. That's just awareness with enough repetition to occasionally change behavior. The silence didn't change. Their relationship to what it meant changed. And that, it turned out, was the only part that was ever theirs to change. Not all silence is a message, but some of us spent years answering it anyway.